And today, how do you combine your feminism with your work in psychology, both as a clinician and as a researcher? Is there something about therapy that is explicitly feminist? Would you say that there's something that's explicitly feminist about an orientation in therapy?
Okay, so in terms of the therapy,
Yes.
yeah, I think that there is a lot that's explicitly feminist, and then I'll answer the other pieces. I mean, the way that the patient professional hierarchy is dealt with,
Mm-hmm.
I think very much speaks to an awareness of social roles. I'm very explicit with my patients about my not necessarily being the expert, that together we're working on exploring alternative questions so that they can come up with new solutions, them being the ones that are doing a lot of the hard work during the week. They are correcting me. I do whatever I can in terms of our interaction to be, on the one hand, supportive and engaging, but on the and a safe pair of hands, but on the other hand, extremely respectful of the fact that they're going to be the agents in their life. And so there's, I think, the hierarchical approach. There's the way in which we look at what they can and can't do and the limitations they put on themselves. I think there's a way in which, with my patients, we'll often sometimes step back and look at the societal pressures on them, not necessarily even really as women, but just as individuals, and how do they then critique what's going on. I think in terms of the eating disorder patients I treat, certainly not all of the women that I treat or all the people I treat are eating disorders, certainly in terms of the eating disorder patients, how we look at why they choose to use their body in the way that they do, I think goes beyond what would be the cosmetic compliance with an ideal. It's like, okay, that's fine, that's session one. Now let's think about what else it means in terms of how you use your body and how you operate in the world. So I think there's a number of different ways in which that impacts. Also just looking at the power of connection for women and the cultivation of little mini societies for them in which they can feel impactful. And then also knowing when it's time to just toss the women's card out the window and say, okay, so really, how are you going to be bigger, bolder, better? And we don't necessarily need to have lots of adjectives. So that, for example, someone who I saw this morning is a woman who works, she's a Hispanic woman, a lawyer in a big multinational, where there's changes going on in their administration where they are really looking to showcase women at senior levels. And we talked about how do we use that interest, but also not get swept away with being defined purely by diversity. So we play with the concepts. We look at where there's an avenue to better yourself, to better others. So clinically, I'd say those are the applications. In terms of the research that I do, the research questions that I ask are very much oriented towards tracking the ways in which women's mental health is impacted by changing societies, changing economic pressures, changing political systems. I think the questions that I ask and the way that I ask them are inspired by feminist thinking. Also, I think the approach to how people are brought into the process, trying to look at the qualitative, not fairly, but still the case that qualitative processes seem to be more firmly rooted in feminist camps than in others. So to the extent that there's a real valuing of the qualitative, I think there's a feminist piece there, the way in which there's an eye towards what we are learning from the local environments and giving back, while again should not really fall under the feminist umbrella, continues to fall there more often than not. And I find myself doing a lot of battle about saying, this isn't Melanie the feminist who's saying it, this is Melanie the good scientist who's saying it. Nonetheless, I'd say that a lot of my confidence in pushing that as an agenda in the way that we create even a culture of research teams is driven from a feminist place, even though I don't believe, I think it's more of a humanist place.